the Red Sea. This is not just a body of water, it is the lifeblood of the world, where 40% of the world's oil, trillions of dollars from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE, flows through the Strait of Hormuz, a deadly choke point where a single spark could ignite the global economy. And now that spark has ignited, blazing like a fire of vengeance. At the beginning of 2025, the Houthi forces, desert warriors from Yemen backed by Iran, crossed a red line. They dared to attack the USS Harry S. Truman, the massive aircraft carrier of the US Navy, a steel fortress embodying the power of an entire nation. With over 5,000 sailors, dozens of fighter jets, and a multi-billion-dollar symbol of invulnerability patrolling the Red Sea to protect maritime freedom, the Houthis showed no concern. From the shores of Yemen, white smoke rose from launch pads hidden in the sand as missiles roared and drones screamed toward the Truman like sharp daggers aimed at the heart of America. They even boasted about shooting down an American MQ-9 Reaper drone with indigenous missiles in Marib province. Yet another provocation amid the storm of war. In America, President Donald Trump is not sitting idly by. Standing before the microphone, his voice booms like thunder. The day of retribution has arrived. The Houthis and Iran will feel the true wrath of America. Just a few hours later, Trump announced the deployment of the USS Carl Vinson aircraft carrier from the Pacific to the Middle East, joining the Truman in an unprecedented strike formation. On Twitter, he roared, "We have been crushing the Houthis day after day. The real pain hasn't even begun. For them and their sponsors in Tehran. From the White House to the Pentagon, the atmosphere is charged. 6 B-2 Spirit bombers, 30% of America's stealth killer fleet, are ready at Diego Garcia Base in the Indian Ocean, just a button press away from Iran." The fuse doesn't stop there. Iran, the force behind the Houthis, has issued its own threats. From Tehran, Iranian generals growled, "We will strike Diego Garcia before the US can move. The Strait of Hormuz will be closed if they dare to touch us." That threat was like pouring gasoline on a fire. The Strait of Hormuz, where 40% of the world's oil passes through, is now a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at any moment. On one side are the Houthis, with their cheap drones and unwavering resolve. On the other side is the US, with overwhelming power and a determination for revenge. In between, Russia quietly observes from the Indian Ocean, the EU sends warships to the Red Sea, and the entire world holds its breath. This is not a minor confrontation. This is a defining moment between the asymmetrical spearhead of the Houthis and the destructive sword of the United States. A battle where missiles meet missiles, drones face fighter jets, and willpower confronts power. Who will stand firm? Who will fall? Get ready, because the flames of vengeance are igniting, and they will incinerate everything in their path. The Red Sea is about to turn blood red, and this story is just beginning. As the sun set over the Red Sea on January 6, 2025, the atmosphere aboard the USS Harry S. Truman suddenly shattered with the piercing sound of alarm sirens. In the control room, the SPY-1D radar lit up, tiny blinking dots racing toward them at lethal speed. "Confirmed threat!" an officer shouted, his voice trembling with tension. Sailors rushed to their battle stations, their steel-toed boots thudding heavily on the deck, hearts pounding in their chests. From the shores of Yemen, the Houthis had launched their boldest attack yet, aimed directly at the heart of the US Navy. The C-802 anti-ship cruise missile, known as the Wave Glider, sprints along at nearly 620 miles per hour, flying just a few meters above the ocean surface, like a ghostly shadow amid the waves. Its 365-pound warhead is powerful enough to tear apart a frigate or shake the deck of the Truman if it hits its target. Following closely are the Shahed 136 suicide drones, sluggish at 115 miles per hour but deadly with 110 pounds of explosives each. The Houthis boast that they are targeting the E-2 Hawkeye, the eye in the sky of the Truman, a combat control aircraft equipped with a massive radar on its back. If the E-2 is shot down, the Truman will be blind on the battlefield, a devastating blow that the Houthis dream of. From the deserts of Yemen, white smoke rises from the launch pad, the roar of the engines pierces the air like a death knell, and the entire world holds its breath in anticipation. But America is not an easy target to take down. On the USS Gravely, an escort destroyer for the Truman, the Aegis system went into emergency mode. C-802 missile, bearing 270 degrees. The operations officer shouted. In an instant, an F-18 Super Hornet launched from the Truman, roaring through the air towards the swarm of drones. 10 Shahed 136 drones exploded in mid-air, debris raining down like fiery rain onto the surface of the sea. At the same time, an SM-2 missile was fired from the Gravely, speeding away at Mach 3.5, leaving a white smoke trail across the sky. Bam! A brilliant explosion. The C-802 was obliterated, and waves crashed violently. Was that another missile? It harmlessly fell into the water, dozens of miles away from the Truman. "Nothing can touch us," Captain of the Gravely shouted, his voice filled with pride. Not only that, the Houthis boasted another achievement, shooting down an MQ-9 Reaper drone over Marib province, the heart of Yemen's oil industry. "We used domestically made missiles to take it down," their official Twitter account declared, accompanied by a video showing black smoke rising from the wreckage. However, the Pentagon scoffed at the claim. "The Houthis' antics have once again failed," said a US official. "They missed Truman by hundreds of miles 3 weeks ago, and now they're bragging about a pile of burning debris. Their effectiveness is certainly questionable." Nevertheless, the loss of the MQ-9 is a slap in the face for the US, a reminder that the Houthis, despite being weak, can still deliver a painful bite. This attack is a reckless challenge from the Houthis. They know they can't sink the Truman, but just one successful hit would score points for them with Iran and the anti-American world. From the deck of the Truman, the sailors' sharp gazes are fixed on Yemen. The radar continues to screech through the night, signaling that the danger is far from over. The Houthis have ignited the fuse, and now they will face the wrath of the giant they have provoked. Red Sea, the night of January 6, 2025. As the smoke from the Houthi attack dissipated over the water, the USS Harry S. Truman stood tall like a steel mountain in the ocean. Not a scratch, not a moment of hesitation. But this is not just a ship. It is a symbol of American power. And now, it does not stand alone. From the Pacific, the USS Carl Vinson, another floating fortress, is slicing through the waves, heading toward the Middle East, carrying dozens of F-35 fighter jets and a promise of destruction. On the deck of the Truman, sailors gaze toward the horizon, knowing that the giant has awakened and it is baring its fangs. The power of the United States is not just about numbers. Alongside Truman and Vinson, the escort fleet roars with the USS Gettysburg, USS Stout, USS Jason Dunham, and USS Sullivan, steel wolves with radar as sharp as an eagle's eye and missiles ready to fire. Further out, in the Indian Ocean, Diego Garcia shines brightly in the night. 6 B-2 Spirit bombers, the stealth killers of the sky, stand silently, each carrying bombs weighing several tons, enough to turn any target into a pile of ash. This represents 30% of the US B-2 fleet, a sword hanging over Iran and the Houthis, just waiting for the order to strike. Technology is the heart of this war machine. On the USS Gravely, the Aegis system, the Steel Brain, scans the skies for hundreds of miles, locking onto targets in an instant. The Tomahawk missile, with a range of 930 miles, glides close to the terrain like a ghost, carrying a 1,100-pound warhead ready to tear apart any Houthi base. From the Truman, F-18 Super Hornets take off, armed with JDAM bombs, the Steel Fist, capable of penetrating deep into the ground, turning bunkers into fiery graves. A Pentagon official roared during a closed-door meeting. The Houthis think they can play with cheap drones? They will see the real nightmare when the sky comes crashing down. On Twitter, President Trump did not hide his fury. "The Houthis have been crushed day after day," he wrote, his fingers typing each word like bullets. But this is just the beginning. The real pain hasn't come yet. for them and their sponsors in Iran. Stop firing at American ships, or we will wipe you out. That threat was no joke. In just the past 2 weeks, the US has relentlessly bombed the Houthis, Tomahawk missiles roaring from the sea, F-18 dropping bombs from the sky, turning weapons depots and command centers into piles of rubble. An F-18 pilot recounted over the radio, "I saw their munitions depot explode like fireworks. Nothing left but smoke and sand." This is America's shield and sword, an impenetrable defense and relentless offense. The Houthi may launch a Shahed 136 drone costing $20,000, but the US responds with million-dollar missiles and penetrator bombs. The disparity is as clear as day. From Diego Garcia, a B-2 can fly to Tehran in just a few hours, dropping GBU-57 bombs, the bunker buster, that can penetrate 60 meters of earth and rock, obliterating any of Iran's nuclear facilities. In the Red Sea, the Truman and Vinson stand like two steel dragons, ready to unleash fire. The Houthi have provoked the giant, and now they will witness its true power. Red Sea, January 7, 2025. As debris from the Houthi drone floats on the waves, a larger shadow begins to take shape, not from the deserts of Yemen, but from Tehran. The Houthis are not acting alone. Each C-802 missile, each Shahed 136 drone, bears the mark of Iran, the puppeteer in the shadows, turning desert warriors into spears against America. From the underground arsenal beneath the Zagros Mountains, Iran has quietly funneled technology and money to the Houthis, transforming the Red Sea into a battleground for proxy warfare. But now they are no longer hiding, and the threats from Tehran are like oil poured onto a raging fire. Iranian General Amir Ali Hajizadeh stood before the microphone, his voice as cold as steel. If the US dares to attack, Diego Garcia will turn to ash. The Strait of Hormuz will be closed. Not a single drop of oil will flow through. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway between Iran and Oman, is the lifeline for 40% of the world's oil. With just a few missiles and a few sunken ships, the global economy would collapse. Iran knows this, and they wield this threat like a sword at America's throat. On Twitter, the Houthis scoffed, "You can't stop us." But behind that roar is Tehran's hand, slipping Houthi forces each Shahed 136B drone, capable of reaching Diego Garcia, albeit slow as a turtle and easy to shoot down. The world is not standing still. From the Indian Ocean, Russian warships, RFS Resky and RFS Alder, quietly observe hundreds of miles away from Diego Garcia. Moscow speaks through the cold tone of Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. A US attack on Iran would be a disaster. Stop before it's too late. But does Russia dare to intervene? Putin once thought he could capture Kyiv in 3 days. Perhaps he is crazy enough to take on the US. On the other side, the EU is not sitting idle. The Italian destroyer Federico Martino, the Greek ship HS Hydra, and the French naval group FS Charles de Gaulle and FS Forbin are cutting through the waves as they enter the Gulf of Aden. Standing alongside the US, we are protecting freedom of navigation, a French admiral roars. His cold gaze directed toward Yemen, Iran, is not just making threats verbally. US intelligence has discovered that Tehran is accelerating its nuclear program, 275 kilograms of enriched uranium, enough to build a bomb if they choose to. Death to America, death to Israel. The slogan of the Ayatollah echoes from the streets of Tehran, no longer just a chant, but a deadly vow. They threaten to attack Diego Garcia, the base where 6 B-2 Spirits are waiting for orders, but the US scoffs at the idea. The Shahed 136B could reach there, a Pentagon official stated, but they would be shot down like flies before they hit the ground. Has Iran forgotten the lesson of Pearl Harbor? The Houthis are merely pawns in this game. Iran uses them to create chaos, wear down the US, and keep the Red Sea heated without shedding their own blood. But they are pushing themselves into a dangerous corner. From Diego Garcia, B-2 bombers could turn Tehran to ash overnight. From the Red Sea, the Truman and Vinson are ready to unleash fire. Russia watches from the sidelines, the EU tightens the noose, and Iran growls in the shadows. The Houthis have struck the match, but Tehran is the one holding the matchbox. And now, that fire is spreading, with no one knowing where it will stop. On January 8, 2025 at 2 a.m., Yemen. The Houthis have provoked the American giant, and now they must pay the price. The dark desert sky suddenly blazed like doomsday as the US Navy launched a counterattack, a relentless display of destruction that turned Revenge Day into a nightmare for the enemy. From the USS Harry S. Truman, alarm sirens blared and red lights flashed on the deck. Sailors shouted over the loudspeakers, "Prepare F-18! Tomahawks ready!" This was not a warning strike. This was a death sentence for the Houthis. Everything starts from above. American satellites scan Yemen like all-seeing eyes, detecting every weapons cache hidden beneath the desert. The MQ-9 Reaper, sibling to the one shot down by the Houthis, circles overhead, its sharp camera zooming in on the launch pad and the shadow of a person fleeing in panic. The RC-135 rivet joint flies around, its electronic ears picking up Houthi signals. Prepare the new missiles! But they are too late. At 2:05 a.m., the USS Gravely and USS Stout open fire. 12 Tomahawk missiles launch from their silos, roaring away at a speed of 550 miles per hour, gliding close to the mountains like a deadly specter. From the Truman, F-18 Super Hornets take off, their engines roaring, carrying JDAM bombs, steel fists, weighing over a ton, ready to drill deep into the earth. At 2:38 a.m., the Tomahawk missile struck first. Each one carried 1,100 pounds of explosives, tearing through the Houthi bunker like a knife through paper. Black smoke billowed up. Debris flew in all directions, and the sound of the explosion echoed across the desert. Then the F-18 swooped in, dropping JDAM bombs through the thick smoke. Boom! A secondary explosion shook the sky. The Houthi munitions depot detonated, turning dozens of C-802 missiles and Shahed 136 drones into a dazzling display of fireworks against the dark night. From the cockpit of the F-18, the pilot shouted over the radio, "Target obliterated! Just smoke and ash left." On the deck of the Truman, sailors looked out into the distance, the flickering light resembling a flame of vengeance blazing bright. The Houthi command base in Sana'a and the Sada'i region, their stronghold, was now just a smoldering pile of rubble. President Trump seized the opportunity. On Twitter he roared, "The Houthis have been crushed. Their ability to attack has been wiped out. Iran, you will be next if you don't submit." The Pentagon announced that dozens of Houthi targets, ranging from launch pads and ammunition depots to radar stations, had been flattened in the past 48 hours. One pilot recounted, "I dropped a JDAM right on the bunker. It exploded like a volcano. Nothing survived. This was a precise, swift strike, sending a strong message. Touch an American ship and you will be erased from the map." But the Houthis did not remain silent. From the rubble, their Twitter account weakly responded, "You have achieved nothing. We will not stop until we are annihilated." The words were bold, but the reality was brutal. Their arsenal lay in ruins, senior commanders had vanished into the smoke, and their ability to launch attacks had been severely diminished. An American official scoffed. "They have a few junk drones left, but their time for playing big is over." Iran, the puppeteer, silently watched from Tehran, knowing that this fire could spread to them at any moment. The day of retribution has erupted. A symphony of destruction resonates across the deserts of Yemen. The Houthis have fallen under the overwhelming force, but America's gaze remains eastward, where Iran awaits. This is a victory, but not the end. On the morning of January 8, 2025, in the Red Sea, black smoke continued to rise from the Yemeni desert. where what was once a weapons depot and command base for the Houthis now lay in ruins. The USS Harry S. Truman glided silently, its massive silhouette gradually disappearing in the early sunlight, unscathed after the fiery storm. The USS Carl Vinson had arrived, standing tall beside the Truman like a pair of steel titans, declaring America's overwhelming victory. The Houthis suffered heavy losses. Dozens of C-802 missiles, Shahed-136 drones, and high-ranking commanders were obliterated in precise airstrikes. Trump boasted on Twitter, "The Houthis have been crushed, maritime freedom has been secured." But as the smoke cleared, the flames of war still smoldered, and it had never been just about the Houthis. The Houthis have demonstrated a chilling truth. Inexpensive weapons, costing only tens of thousands of dollars each, can force a superpower to spend millions in response. America's billion-dollar shield, Aegis SM-2 Phalanx, holds firm like a fortress, but at a steep price. "Using a sledgehammer to swat a fly," a sailor on the gravely muttered, and he was right. If the Houthis launch 50 drones and 20 missiles simultaneously, does the US arsenal have enough to hold out? But now, with their stockpile devastated, the Houthis are merely a faint shadow. From Sana'a, their feeble voice on Twitter echoes, "We will not stop." But that is the roar of a beast with broken fangs. America has won this battle, but the real enemy still waits to the east. Iran, the shadow behind the Houthi, remains silent from Tehran, yet their gaze is fixed on the Red Sea. With 606 pounds of enriched uranium, they are getting closer to a nuclear bomb. The Strait of Hormuz, the lifeline for 40% of the world's oil, remains a deadly card in their hands. "We will close Hormuz if the US attacks," a general from Iran roars, a threat that hangs like a knife over the global economy. Diego Garcia, where 6 B-2 Spirits are ready for takeoff, is within the sights of the Shahed-136B drone. Although the US scoffs, they will be shot down before they touch the ground. But what if Iran takes the risk? What if they close Hormuz, igniting a full-scale war? From the Indian Ocean, Russia watches with a cold smile, their warships moving silently. Putin may not be crazy enough to confront the US, but who can be sure? On the deck of the Truman, an officer gazed toward Yemen, his expression thoughtful. The Houthis have fallen, but Iran isn't giving up. This is just the beginning. The Red Sea remains hot, not just from the smoke rising from the desert, but from the geopolitical fire that is spreading. The US has sent a message. We are the defenders of maritime freedom. Yet Iran remains a looming threat, with nuclear capabilities and control over Hormuz. The EU is tightening its grip with warships in the Gulf of Aden. Russia stands by watching, and the Middle East is trembling on the brink of war. Next time, Iran could launch missiles faster, deploy more sophisticated drones, or truly close off Hormuz. Will the US strike Tehran? Will Russia intervene? Ashajarin, or she? The day of retribution has ended with smoke and fire in Yemen, but the story is far from over. The Red Sea still burns silently, waiting for the next move. Who will have the last laugh? The resilient Houthis, the cunning Iranians, or the invincible Americans? The answer lies in the future, a future that is rushing toward us faster than the winds across this sea of hatred.